A lot of issues.
I don't have any.
But we are live. Welcome
We're live. Whoops.
today. So give us a shout out. Let us know that you are there. Don't be silent. I was a little late on the uptake of getting this going. So we'll see how many we have joined because I was not quick on getting that done.
Speaking of toxic traits.
Yeah, then no one does anything. It doesn't take accountability and make Sarah do it all. Is that
Or Sarah's never on time for anything.
Always coming out hot, boy. I love it.
Everyone just goes, Sarah will do it. Sarah will come up with the topic and find the guest and start the podcast, and I'll just show up 1 minute before and grace everyone with my presence. Is that toxicity that we're doing?
It's not toxic at all.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, let's do the definition. So our topic today.
That's diva.
Oh, I could not have said it better myself. The topic today is toxic traits. Toxic. So I have the definition that I looked up because I just want to make sure we're saying the same thing. So according to let's see. According to, I don't know if this is Webster or whatever, it's being emotionally mature, self-aware, means that you are able and willing to admit when you're wrong and when you could improve. Wait, sorry. Hang on. That didn't take the right one. That's one of the definitions of the word.
But that was good.
No, that's the definition for responsibility, not taking responsibility. Well, shoot. Someone may have to look that up for me real quick. Someone grab that.
Yep.
Let's see here.
I took a picture and everything. Marcus and I were talking about it, and it grabbed the wrong thing. So I have the top list of toxic traits, but I want a definition because here's the thing. Not every negative trait or bad trait or whatever is a toxic trait. Would we agree with that? Like everyone now, the word that we're using right and left is a narcissist. I really think there are very few narcissists in the world. I think we just go to that because it's now like the word to use, right? And I feel like toxic trait is now the thing to say. So It's not necessarily you have a bad habit or something that you want to improve on. A toxic trait really by definition is very different.
Okay.
Then I don't think chewing with your mouth open is going to be on the list of toxic traits, but we joke about it, right? Like that could be because it could cause someone to go to jail if you did it. Oh, look at Boo right there by you.
So that's funny. I went to bad habits, so it's not necessarily a bad habit.
No,
When this says a toxic trait is considered inconsistency in behaviors and commitments which may develop as a result of where exactly you are in life right now.
That's one of them. So let's start with this. We'll do the list of toxic traits because this will change what you guys have when you were thinking toxic traits. Like, what are my bad behaviors, right? So the number one toxic trait, negativity.
Yeah, it's a bad habit.
I agree.
More, think about like how negativity is like a cancer, right? That person comes in, everything is negative, everything is a answer, there's no solution, right? It's just that negative Ned, sorry if your name is Ned, mentality, right? Yeah, you're never going to win because everything's wrong, right?
Yeah, I'll probably offend people, but I don't know how you live that way. I guess that's a.
Well, there's a lot of people we live around who are like that. I mean, I'm not going to call those out by name but holy crap, they're everywhere.
Everything's negative. What can you? I don't know. I mean, it's like when your feet hit the floor, everything's negative. Really? Like,
right? Yes.
You know what I mean? Morning out of bed.
Glass is always half empty.
Well, that doesn't mean you can't be negative about a situation, or you can't go, oh my gosh, I'm so negative today, right? Or I'm in a bad mood, or that's not what that means. It means like that's just your outlook.
Yeah, your demeanor.
Trait, everything you look at from a negative perspective, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's number one. So you have to self-reflect. Do we have that or not? I don't know. Second, judgmental. Are you judgmental?
We all are.
Of course, everybody is.
But again, to the point of toxicity, right? Like, I mean, yes, can you be judgmental on certain things, but to the point of it being a toxic trait.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
You know, the Judgy Judy's, right? Where everything is gossipy, everything is about another person, everything is, right? Like,
yeah.
Okay. Third one, so you're going to think about it, and then we're going to go back and talk. So you have time to self-reflect. Third one, not taking responsibility. That drives me crazy. when people don't own up to what they do.
I agree.
Even if it's like, yeah, you know what? I don't think that I had full responsibility, but I can share. Even if somebody says that, I'm at least somewhat better. But I hate when people go, yeah, that ain't mine. Oh, you know what? It is, kitten. It is.
You got to own your behavior. Yep. Ownership.
Yep. I agree with that one.
I always tell people, like, I don't, we're all going to make mistakes and things happen, but it's, take ownership for it. And I'm, it's a lot easier for me as a person to look the other way and be like, okay, well, let's just do it different next time versus if you're like, nope, that ain't mine. I'm like,
yeah, it's pretty bad if you can't even acknowledge it. So I agree.
Right? Okay. Gaslighting.
Huh?
What is gaslighting? I
Gaslighting.
don't even know the definition of that anymore.
So gaslighting is, we may have to look up that definition because I may say it wrong for what I think it is.
Right.
So I think that it's more when you work someone up about something or you throw fuel on the fire, right?
Okay.
I think it has a different term. I mean, I don't know.
Maybe it does.
I'm going to Google
I call that borderline.
I always thought it was just when you're like, you're not making the situation better, but you're actually making
you're stirring the pot.
Yeah, you're stirring the pot. You're gaslighting someone.
According to this, it says gaslighting is a form of manipulation that often occurs in abusive relationships. Yep. It's a covert type of emotional abuse where the bully or abuser misleads the target, creating a false narrative and making them question their judgments and reality.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. So we all knew a big gaslighter.
It's like Mean Girls. It's like Mean Girls.
No,
movie Mean Girls.
Not true.
Yeah, it is like Mean Girls.
Girl, I never.
When you're pretending to be the friend and you're pretending to set her up, whatever it is, right? And then you're really just behind the scenes, demolishing them. That's what. Yeah, you're sabotaging, essentially. Maybe Mean Girls was a wrong, touchy topic.
I'm just saying, I wasn't. I don't think I was ever. I was just directly mean. That is awful. Because I had that done to me recently, and that was not a fun.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Okay, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4. The fifth one, there's 5. The fifth one, manipulation.
Yeah. Good or bad?
Yeah.
I don't know. Manipulation and influence to me, same word, different connotation. Influence is supposed to be for good. Manipulation is for bad. But is it? I don't know.
Yeah, true. Yeah, good point.
I don't know.
It sounds nicer.
It sounds.
Well, no, manipulation doesn't sound as nice as the other.
Right.
Fair. But again, I think in English, in our language, we have so many words compared to what other cultures have, which is why I think people come here and they go, I don't even understand what you're saying because there's all these subtle, right? And that's why so you used your influence or you used your skill to get someone to do something that's good or bad. I think it all depends upon not the word, but the outcome.
Okay, so then manipulation, another word that comes to mind for me would be passive aggressive. I know that's not on the list.
Sometimes manipulation is just straight out I don't know. That's a different topic.
Well, so I'm looking at an article that's a mental health article from social workers. That's the 8 toxic traits of influence. And the number 1 is manipulation. And it says they use the knowledge they gain about you to try and get you to do what they want. They will often twist your words or make you feel guilty to get their way.
It's about achieving, yeah.
So mothers. Is that the guilt thing or Catholics? Or we could go a whole thing with that. Anyway. All right. So the last one, number 6, and I have the definition of that, but Chip, you brought it up. It's inconsistency. So I think this is what I call walking on eggshells. Chip and I have had a crazy boss we worked for in the past, and it was the most uncomfortable thing because you never knew what you were walking into. Was it a good day and everything was going to be great, or was it a bad day and everything was horrible?
Yeah.
And that inconsistent behavior was very hard to target.
I've had a boss like that before too. It's like you'd have to read them when they enter the room to see who you're dealing with.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I do get we can read text wrong and all of that. And you might look at something and go, oh, was that just them? And then when you get to know someone, you go, oh, no, that's just right. Like I have to start my emails. I write the email and then I have to go back in and go, good morning. And if I don't have time to do that, then it comes across like that. Right. But it's not that way.
I would say all the ones you named, that's my biggest pet peeve one. I hate being told to do one thing. And then when you're doing that, they're like, well, why are you doing it that way? Because that's what you wanted. well, no, you should do this. Well,
Yeah.
but that's not what you said.
Yeah, that'd be a tough one to swallow. You bet.
And then those people tend to not take ownership for being inconsistent either.
Oh, heck yeah.
Because when you then call them out on it, go, well, you should have known that changed.
So,
And I would have known that how.
How many of these traits do you have to have then before you are a toxic person? Just because you have one toxic trait doesn't mean, right, that you're a toxic person. So April and Dee, we've got you guys on. Good morning. Thank you for being brave enough to say something. The rest of you.
Can I add a couple to your list that's on this list that I have that's not, you didn't name that I just think are very interesting because I think they might be a little more common than some of those.
Bring them on. Bring your charts and graphs.
One of them is they make you feel bad about, someone makes you feel bad about yourself all the time.
The bully. I call that a straight out bully.
Yeah,
Well,
I agree.
No, because a bully's more direct, in my opinion. A bully's like more aggressive about it. Like you're afraid to do something because the bully's gonna take revenge or something. I feel like that make you feel bad is when you leave that person. How do you feel after you've been around that person?
And that's what it says. It says when this person is like trying to defeat your happiness, or if you're proud of yourself, they won't allow you to be, or they find ways to rain on your parade or downplay your achievements.
I still
call that. I would call that a bully because it's just someone who can somehow, if they know you enough, can just get under your skin and be like,
or what about
really that great?
Like a picture of a coat, and you go, "What do you think of this coat?" And they go, "Well, the coat's adorable, but you'd look really fat in it." That to me is what you're talking about, Chip. That kind of, I don't know.
That's passive aggressive to me, big time.
Well, which is interesting, Marcus, because one of the next ones is being passive aggressive.
Yeah.
That drives me nuts. Just be aggressive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I also don't like passive people either. So just like say what you want to say. I do not read signs well. Like everyone thinks I do, but I'm always like, what? What does that mean? And then I overthink it, and then I'm like, I have no idea. So if you're gonna say something, you better just come out and say it, because otherwise, like whatever you think you said to me, I didn't get. Like I'm just gonna be totally honest. I'm like, haha. Like,
well, sometimes the only way to get through to people who are passive aggressive is to be passive aggressive back to them, and because that's not my nature, it drives me crazy.
Yes, too much work.
And go, what is it? What are you saying? Because then every time you say that, how my cat sneaks in my room all the time, I don't know. Every time it comes out, she's like a ninja. I don't even think she's in here.
It came out of the right corner pocket there.
There you go.
Literally, she is like a ninja. She disappears, and then of course now wants out like crazy.
So then another one is being self-centered. Toxic people care mostly about only themselves. So
let me ask a question, because my mom and I had this discussion when I worked for that crazy boss. There's a difference between being selfish and self-centered. To me, those are two different things.
Oh yeah, because this continues to say that they don't think about how their actions affect others and believe they're better than everyone else.
Right, because self-centered to me is an egotistical thing of I'm up here, right? Like I'm not equal with anyone else. Like everything is, like I see it from a different perspective. Selfish to me is more, I want my way. So it's the person that every time you go, where do you want to eat? And everyone goes, I don't care, whatever. And they're like, no, I don't like that place. And they're always the one that like, we're going to go to where I want to go instead of, well, where does anybody want to go? Now, if again, left with the choice, I'm not passive aggressive, so I'll make a decision, right? But I love when other people make decisions because I don't always want to make the decision. So someone who maybe could look selfish, that doesn't mean self-centered.
No, I agree. I think there's a difference.
Self-centered is worse to me than being selfish. Like selfish, just grow up, get over it. You'll be fine.
Yeah, selfish is kind of bratty, I think. And then
or like I want things my way. Like, can we not do this in the morning at 8? Can we do it at 4? Because I don't. Okay, well, what about this? Do you think about anyone else and what they want to do, or is it
Yeah.
And then I think there's two more, but I'm only going to give you one of them because I think one of them is a copy. So one of them is controlling, which I think is what gaslighting to me was. When I read what this says, but then I'm only going to say this other one because it's a big pet peeve of mine and Sarah's: difficulty managing their anger.
Oh, I don't like that.
I am not good with angry people. I'm not good with people that get angry. Like, it's just like I shut down because I don't understand the anger.
I'm out. No,
yeah, that's a tough one.
De-escalate, work through it.
Which is weird because Chip and I talked about, we had very different backgrounds growing up. So we talked about why is that? I just don't think my parents ever, I don't remember them ever fighting. I don't remember them ever being, and even when us kids fought, it was more like you'd hear like, boom, 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 right? Because someone is getting nailed to the floor, usually me by my brothers. And then it was over. Like if I cried, I got more pressure from siblings. So there was never like fighting stuff. And I think for me, like I don't deal with it well. As soon as someone gets angry and they're just like belligerent and they get to the certain point, I'm like, okay.
I think it's because
Ruth's smiling, and I know why.
I had an ex years ago who would just get angry, and like you would never know what was going to set them off. And I think it's for me, it's because when someone's angry, you can't rationalize with them in the moment because they really have to come out of it and go, "Why are you so worked up? Like what was so bad in the situation that took you to that place so quickly?"
Right, and I feel like those people are like, "Well, I wasn't really mad." Yeah, you were. Like it was uncomfortable mad. Like not just like you were like snarky. It was
just
like
passionate.
Yeah, right. No, I'm passionate, but I don't get angry very often.
Yeah, and that's what I tell people. Like, I get frustrated, I will say, but I don't get really angry. Like, I would say very few people have ever truly seen me angry. And that's usually a building thing where like something's going on over a period of time where it percolates and gets to that.
And then I remove myself because I don't want anyone to see me that way. So when I'm really angry, I'm quiet and I want to go dark because then I just need to deal with my own whatever I am, because I know it's going to be fleeting. Like I know I'm mad right now, but in 2 hours or the next day, it may not be as angry, right? So just deal with it yourself. Don't bring everybody in on it.
And usually if I'm that angry, I cry.
Ooh, and then I'm more mad because I cried, and then you saw me cry, so now I have to kill you. There's just I don't know what to tell you. Like, sorry. Like, I have a list of everyone who's ever seen me cry in my life. And so just FYI, if you're on that list, just know someday you're going to be like, why are you burying me? You know, I told you.
Chip D says you yell at her all the time.
Yeah, and D, I told you not to talk about that in public, so we'll discuss that
after this.
Oh, poor D.
So much for confidentiality.
Yes, I will be seeing after the show.
I will be gaslighting her at 9:01.
Right? What time is it? You got 15 minutes, D. Run. One of the things I hate that I think is toxic, but it's not on here, but maybe it kind of is on the anger thing. I don't like moody people. Yeah, like I get totally like your moods are different. Like sometimes you're like super hyper and then sometimes you're quiet. I get all of that. Like that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like, is it going to be a good day or a bad day? Like not what you're talking about, Drew, where you're passionate about something. Because I feel like I don't think I'm screaming, but I probably sound like I'm screaming because I'm like, okay, you know what? But that always means I'm fine. Like it's when I'm like one word answers and I'm really quiet and I go away and I'm not fine, right? But and even then, like I'm quiet. Moody people drive me nuts. Like if I'm like, are you okay? Yeah. Are you okay? Yeah. I'm not going to mention this person in my life, but like I'll have a day and he'll be super quiet. And I go, you okay today? Yeah. Okay.
We just give you much to work with.
And then, like his face is different. His attitude is different. And so like an hour later, I'm like, hey, are you sure you're okay? Yeah.
That's a guy thing.
Okay. And then like 2 hours later, I'm like, do you have a headache? Are you hungry? Are you? Because I'm trying to figure out why.
Right? Guess and see.
So, are you okay? I'm fine.
Yeah, because you took it that far. So you got to let it go. That's
okay. And then I'm like, 2 hours later, hey, are you okay? I'm fine, except you keep asking me if I'm okay. Okay, now I'm not okay. And now you can go sit by yourself for the next 40. And then he'll turn around like that. And he's like, so you want to go to lunch?
Yep.
No, because I was fine. I'm not fine now. That drives me absolutely crazy. That moody kind of, right? Like I'm like, I cannot gauge you. So nope, where I get up and I go, I'm snarky today, right? Or like, I can't play today. I can't be like sarcastic. Like Chip and I have a really good language with that because we're super sarcastic with each other. So if I wake up and I know like, hey, I will punch you in the throat if you cross the line because I'm not in the mood today, I'll just be like, not in the mood. And he's like, all right, we're good. And we don't push each other's buttons, right, Chip? Like never. We know to go, hey,
that's cool. You have that understanding. That really shows a healthy relationship, in my opinion.
Well, and I think some people are inward and outward demonstrative. I think they're two different things. So I think it's like some people, like you said, are outward and demonstrative and saying what they're feeling, where others are more internal. And so in that earlier example you gave, I'm much more like that too. It's like, if I'm quiet, I'm quiet. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it. But the more you poke the bear at it, the more that starts to get agitated.
But as a helpful hint, say, I'm just quiet today and I'm going to be quiet today.
I've learned to do that.
Great. Okay. And you know what? Nothing's wrong and you're just quiet today. Great. Get it. Don't have much to say. Perfect. Right? Get it.
It depends.
But when you say there's nothing wrong and you act completely different, guess what? And
it's interesting that you say that, because I've had to gauge my social outlets because of that. Because I mean, we self-admit that I'm an introvert and extrovert's body. And so if I go out and I'm not feeling that extroversion and I'm quiet, people, what's wrong with you? Why are you quiet? What's going on? Yeah. So I have to learn, if I can't turn that on, then I really just can't go anywhere, because it becomes frustrating for me, because I'm like, there's nothing wrong. I'm just not feeling
100%,
it.
100%. I agree. Yeah.
But again, I think if you say that, though, I think it's communication, right? To Marcus's point, I think you've got to be able to say that. Like, you guys have traveled enough with me that you know that I spend all my words all day. So by the time in the evening, I'm kind of talked out most of the time. And so I think for me, it's more, Chip and I will travel. And it's so funny because we were talking about people who interrupt movies. Drives me crazy unless I'm the one interrupting, and that's totally okay. But when we go somewhere and we watch a movie, he's sitting with his iPad on his lap and he's doing stuff. I'm totally in the movie. My phone's nowhere near me. And instead of interrupting, he sends me a text, right? So when I look at it, I get the meme or I get the whatever, but he doesn't interrupt because that's my time, right? Like, I think some of these things, maybe you learn to cope, or do you find you go to like-minded toxic trait people? Because then what bothers you that someone does, you go to people that have the same toxic. I mean, do we all have them?
Well, and I think you see
birds
that
of a feather flock together.
Clearly, the people who are around them are allowing them to be that way, or they wouldn't be that way. If people who are negative all the time,
by the way,
were constantly being called out for being negative all the time, at some point, like, either you wouldn't have them in your life, or they would have to change.
Yeah.
Good point.
Keep going, well, I'm around this person and that behavior drives me crazy, right? Instead of finally going, and sometimes I don't think you realize it until the person's gone. Have you guys ever seen that too? Like, you have someone in your life, whether it's a coworker or a friend or a family member or a relationship, right? And you don't really realize until that person.
Well, and I think that's true for a lot of these, like the gaslighting or controlling one or the manipulation one. I think sometimes that hindsight is 2020 to go, well, wait a second.
Sure.
Right.
Or you learn how to tolerate them, you know.
And sometimes, say that again, Marcus.
I was saying sometimes I believe that we learn to tolerate people sometimes, which may be a strength of our own that we're using to cope.
Or a weakness.
Or a weakness.
Well, I'm saying if you have a toxic relationship and you're always the one caving, right? You're losing who you are as a person rather than standing for what your principles are. And I think that's where, for me, I call it the roller coaster ride. I hated that, whether it's a relationship, friendship, whatever, where it just is like the peaks and valleys. There's no kind of just steady pace. It's either I'm on, down, whatever it is. It's just it is a draining challenge.
Yeah. And I think too, interestingly enough, I mean, I guess two things. One is, when you separate, right? And then you go, oh, wait, that wasn't me, right? Because then you're like, oh, I'm not negative, right? Like, I was just around someone that was constantly negative at me, and then I became negative. Or is it you?
Right.
That's when you assess how many people are leaving you.
Right.
Except those people never get it. You're like, wait, like 15 people have left, and you're the core thing here. Like, are you seeing, like, what's the
do you see the pattern here?
Because you kind of have to, right? Sometimes you're like, when it's the world is against you, is it really the world, or is it right? But then I also see the victim mentality, and that's a whole nother show. Maybe we talk about that Tuesday. But the victim mentality of it is everyone else, right? Or to your point, if you're in a relationship and you go, this isn't a healthy relationship, like I'm in a relationship, or I have a friend that I need to distance myself from, or whatever it is, to me, that's a little different. But we all know those people that every time they talk about something, it's the other person that has the problem. And they're never to blame, or they're never even mutually culpable. Because I don't think there's ever a situation, if I am one of the parties involved, that I can't look at myself and say, how did I add to the situation, or how did I help, or how did I, like, oh yeah, I totally bought in, right? Like you get that phone call and someone's like, this person did this and this and this and this and this, and you're like, oh my goodness, and you believe it, right? You kind of get on that train, and then you turn around and you pass it, and then you realize there's 8 sides to that story. And then you're like, oh, okay, wait a minute. Whoopsie. And then, right, one time you're going to do that. The second time someone does that, you're like, but is that all true, right? Like, or is it, I don't know.
100%.
Yeah, right. But then I know those people that it's always someone else's problem. Everything is someone else's problem, right? They never like, well, I know, but that didn't work for me. Or, well, I know you like that person, but you just don't know who they are. Okay, maybe I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
So, fun tip for the boss that Sarah and I have not. It was not the same boss, by the way, that Sarah and I had. They were different bosses that were.
And no one we know now.
Yeah, no one we know now. So please, if you're watching, please don't assume we're talking about anybody here knows, because there's no way anybody knows either one of the people Sarah and I are talking about. She had some employees who, because they were so frustrated with her behavior, she would eat tuna every day from Whole Foods. Oh. So they went and bought a can of tuna, and you know how the ceiling tiles in offices pop up, and hid it in her ceiling tiles.
Open.
Oh. And it took maintenance of the building, I think, like 6 weeks to finally find this can of rotting tuna in her office.
That sounds like something out of The Office. Sounds like an episode out of The Office, right?
Yeah.
That would be passive aggressive.
That's definitely passive aggressive. But I will say, like, this boss was like, she would yell at people down the hallway, and I can't even say on the show some of the things that she would say.
She earned it, huh?
So bad.
But see, instead of doing because I go, oh, but that's not nice. Like, to me, I just go. Do you realize everyone hates when you eat tuna because it stinks? Like, Lauren and I have a joke. You guys know that, because Chip and I, when we first started, we had a very small office when we first started. We weren't as big as we are now, and it was very small. And so Chip and I would make popcorn in the microwave. Lauren hates the smell of popcorn in the microwave. Hates it. So he came out and he's like, can we never make popcorn? Like, can you guys go make it somewhere else in like the community thing, not here? And I said, yes, under one condition. You never heat up peas in this office, because I hate
peas.
And I have lived with it for 10 years, and I've never said anything, but seeing we're clear in the air, no peas.
Deal. Yeah.
Have we ever heated up peas? And Chip, have we ever heated up popcorn in the office?
I remember after that, like, we would hire new employees and they wouldn't know. And I'm like, oh, did you make popcorn? No.
Live at the edge.
No, but so some of it I go back to is communication, right? Because we're all human. We all have certain traits, and it's really hard to change who you are as a person. Do you know what I mean? So I think if you're sarcastic, it's really hard to say, well, don't be sarcastic. Okay, well, I'm sorry. That's just how my brain works. Like, that's the first thing that comes out. I work really hard to make sure it doesn't come out of here that fast. Sometimes I don't help. Sometimes I'm not good at it. But like, if you could see the things that don't make it out of here that are happening back here, you'd be like, wow, you're really good at that self-control.
You're filtering well.
Yeah, so if you're not a sarcastic person, I totally get why that would be super annoying, that everything is a snarky, right? But then it's funny because I love sarcasm. So when I'm in a group full of people and no one's sarcastic, I'm like, oh, this is just.
But usually when I'm around people who are like that, and because obviously you and I are both very much that way, like, I usually I find those people are people who are kind of slower or aren't very witty or aren't very sarcastic, so they just can't keep up. And so that's a constant. I'm going to say compliment because I need to spin it that way. That's a constant compliment that people are like, wow, you are fast. Like, that just came out of nowhere.
I think it's a fast sense of humor versus not necessarily stupid. We're not calling anyone dumb if you're not sarcastic. I think you can be very intelligent. It's how your brain is wired, though, I think. Sure. And I think we have a fast sense of humor.
All
like,
about
it doesn't
the
take us
delivery.
a while to come up with a thought, or like Julie made a comment because she said something and I added like a song lyric right afterwards or a movie quote. I don't do that very often because people are like, what? And then by the time I go back and explain it So I think it's funny in my own head, but I'm like, never mind the joke. That was a long
You
time
missed
ago.
it. Right.
Yeah, if you have to explain it, it's not a
Yeah.
good thing.
Yeah. It takes the
Right.
fun.
No, I would agree. I mean, if it's something witty or funny or something like that, that's what's fast. Like if I'm working through a process, like I'm very thoughtful and slow about it. Like
Right.
I might have initial thoughts that are really fast, but then I'll go, I have some thoughts, but I need to think through them. I don't want to say those out loud yet. I'm like, let me sort through them. So
Right. And April has a great one to add to the toxic trait. Chip, do you want to read that one?
So she said it reminds her of ask holes, ASK, constantly whining and asking for advice, but with any advice you give them, their responses are yeah, but.
Yeah,
Okay.
never good enough.
I
Yeah,
have
that
to
drives
say,
me
on social
crazy,
media-
April. I agree.
Yes. And Marcus, you probably get this a lot as a personal trainer. I get this all the time on social media where people ask me things, like I'll post something about a product or something I did or whatever, and they'll go, well, do you really think it works? And I spend this, and by the way, I don't get paid. So thank you for asking me 8 million questions. I don't get paid
You're a
for it.
manipulator. You're not
using my time to be nice, right? And so I'll say, yeah, it doesn't work for everyone, but here's this and here's this, here's this. And then they go, yeah, well, I don't think. Why did you even ask me? I'm not going to argue with you. So I go, great, okay. And then I'm like, I'm never going to get that 20 minutes back of my time. Don't be an asshole. Nobody likes an asshole. Nobody does.
I agree.
But even when you have friendships, like
no.
April and I have talked about friends who, and I can just speak to experience, and I don't think they watch or they're going to know who we're talking about, who like are in relationships and things like that. They constantly want advice because you can see that they're in a relationship they shouldn't be in to begin with, although you can't necessarily even say that.
No.
But they're constantly coming to you because something's wrong over and over, and you get frustrated because you're like, you've either got to fix this or like I'm tired of hearing about it. Like,
right.
Yeah,
or there's the one that every other month they have a new relationship, right? And then they end up going, well, you don't understand.
That's a clue.
Right. I've never had a healthy relationship in my life. So you're right. I have no advice to give you. And I've just learned, like, honestly, anymore, I try not to give advice because of assholes. I'll be honest. Like, I just end up going, you know what? Here's Google it. Google it and you figure it out for yourself. Because I try and then I get frustrated because I'm like, why'd you ask me? You asked me to argue with me. Don't ask to argue.
Ask them what they think they should do. That's the challenge. What do you think? Yeah.
Right. Well, I think they either want you to prove them wrong.
Sure.
Like that one meme that has the sign that you throw something up and you're like, prove me wrong. I am never going to do that. First of all, I'd be like, no, you go, whatever you think is fine. Or the one that, oh, my favorite, they post that no one will post this. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, have you ever seen that on Facebook? And it's like this, usually it's like a
about cancer or something.
Or something like that. It's no one will post this. No one is brave enough to post this. Does that really work? Because now I'm not going to post it. Because now you just said, like, I wouldn't repost it anyway because I don't really repost much, but certainly not going to do it now because you're like, no one will do this. Yeah, you're right. No one will now because, right? It's that, again, I think it's that passive aggressive or that, drives me crazy, right?
Well, here's the kicker for me, and I'm proud to say this as I'm getting older each year.
You and Chip.
Go Chip. I don't hang around people that cause me stress.
I agree.
I would agree, Mark, because I've gotten older. Like the interesting thing is, and I think Sarah and I've talked about this. Like when we're young, like your group of friends, even though I wouldn't necessarily call them friend now, is very large. And the older I get, the smaller that group gets.
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
It depends on stress, though, because I think when we're going to use Drew's word, when we're passionate about something, right? We don't call it stress because we're passionate about it, but it still can be stressful. When we're not passionate about it, right? Then we call it stress, which is usually work or something you have to do, which then I get very personal about lately because I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, we're paying you a salary, and I'm sorry it's work.
Right.
I don't know how we misconstrued. Here's a job for here's a paycheck kind of thing, and it's now stressful. And then I love people leave and they go do something else, and they go, oh, well, this is hard.
Yep.
Yeah, because the grass isn't always greener. It's what you do with the grass you currently have, right? So I think it's one of those things. But yeah, I think it's there are some people that just add drama and stress to your life. There's just a certain element, and when they leave, that's where I was saying I don't think you know until they're gone. Like recently, I had a relationship depart that I had for like 3 years, and it was like, wow. Like, I mean, and it was weird in the beginning. There was a lot of trauma related to it. And now I was talking with another colleague and I was like, wow, like it's so different now. I didn't even realize how bad it was because it just built up over time. And then until the absence of it, right, you don't realize what it is. But I think in that you can blame someone else, right? Or you can go, wow, what am I doing? Or how did I contribute to that? And how do I make sure I'm not ever that person?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah,
Instead
exactly.
of always blaming the other person, like
Yeah, exactly.
out of those lists. So Chip, what were yours? Because we had, just to recap, negativity, being judgmental, not taking personal responsibility, gaslighting, manipulating, inconsistency. We had passive aggressive. You added what else?
Oh, I closed my list.
We'll have to add that on there. And then ask Cole. I love that, April. So we're going to add that one to the list. But I think as you process, though, right? And maybe we can break each one of these down over for like a series or do 2 or 3 of them in a podcast, because I think it's much more about sometimes how you're raised. I think it's much more about your environment sometimes. And I think sometimes there are traits that are just innate in us and we can change if we actually make effort to change. And if we have internal and external accountability and, hey, when I do that, will you point it out to me?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, and that's the word I was going to use, Sarah. Is acknowledgement. In order for a person to want to change anything, they have to first be able to acknowledge that there's something that needs to be changed.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, because we all say we hate passive aggressive, but are any of us ever passive aggressive? Sometimes you hate the trait the most.
I truly try not to ever go there. For me, I truly try not to go there.
You're not passive aggressive, Marcus. I think some of us can be. I think Chip and I can be, but I think it's out of response. But then I think it's not a good response, right? Because I think
I agree. It's out of response, but I acknowledge that I'm doing it. Like I'll go, hey, I'm going to do this, but it's pretty passive aggressive. So it's not really in my nature to do. I'm fully aware of what I'm doing. Like I think truly toxic passive aggressive people, I don't even think they know they're passive aggressive.
I agree. The self-awareness is fleeting. They don't know what they have at that point.
I think they know, and I think they fine-tuned it to a skill, because when I was a counselor, oh man, I used to deal with some very interesting personalities, and being passive aggressive is a skill when done correctly, in my opinion.
Well, and I think sometimes to say we don't know that we have those. I'm just, again, 51. Marcus, you're 61. Drew, 41, 42.
32.
Mm-hmm. Close.
Hey, you got mine wrong too.
47.
No, Drew's 31 and I'm 32.
That's
right.
Yeah, I think mine was wrong.
Over the past 40, 50, 60 years, no one has ever said any of these things on the sticky to you. I'm going to say, I think you know. I think you've been told that, and maybe you're.
You're saying passive aggressive, or just the whole list in general?
No, I think the whole thing of people saying they don't know that they are. I'm going to say by this age, you should know.
Yeah, you should know.
If no one ever told you, or any relationship you left, or anything you never self-reflected.
Yeah, you should.
Well, and if you are that person, please stay away from me, because you're heaven.
I think, like I was saying, it takes work to get to that level for people. And I don't think some people don't ever get that level of trying to work on themselves. They just don't see it. I mean, they know what they're doing, to your point.
They don't have the ability to take a true look.
It's the one that you just said, the relationship that, magically I'm dating somebody else again. They just don't see, they're not getting their issues that are out there.
It's always someone else, right? It's always someone else.
Right.
Yeah. So, anyway, we'll take these and we'll break them down a few at a time and kind of really dig in, because I think, again, if toxic traits, right, which is all the thing now that everyone says is, everyone has a toxic trait. How do we fix that? Because we have culpability and responsibility for what we put out in the world. So I think it starts with us first, and then, making sure that we have accountability for how we behave and why we behave that way. And at least to what we're saying, own it, right? Hey, I'm a little passive aggressive today, or hey, I'm a little sensitive today, and I might be a little snippy, or I'm quiet today. Just because I'm quiet, nothing's wrong. I'm just quiet. And then we can let people like me relax, because I'm like, I don't have to fix it, right? But yeah, so, well, something to think about. We'll post that list so that you can all look at that and reevaluate over the next week.
Hey, can I say something right quick?
Yes, of course.
Thanks. I'll make it quick. I find, or I believe that a majority of people have trouble dealing with silence.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have that person that comes in quiet, it actually makes the other person, well, not make, the other person sometimes chooses to struggle with that because once again, we try to fix it, make it better. Is something wrong? Is it me? Is it you? And I think we often have trouble dealing with silence. And I know the times that I did group therapy and stuff, and we would get to a point where it would be quiet. I would let it ride out.
Yep.
And then I would count because it probably wouldn't last too long before somebody would jump in and try to make things better. So I'll just say
it's a
Me.
tactic.
Well, and anybody who's been in therapy, I think, can probably tell you that, Marcus, because therapists are very big on silence is okay.
exactly.
Silence is great. I mean, again, if you know me really well and you've been with me during downtime, I can be very quiet, or I'm okay with quiet. I just need to understand why. Like, again, if there's something wrong, then let's talk about it and let's fix it. Because I'm a fixer, right? I'm like a guy in that capacity. I don't want to really like process through it and like cry about it. I just want to, what's the problem? And then let's fix it. Right. But I think if I don't know, that's what bothers me more. It's the unknown of, are you angry at me? Did I do something? Because I'm a big fixer of, I don't like to sit in anger or frustration. So if I did something, then let me apologize or let me even understand and explain or whatever. So I think I internalize it as, is it me? Number one, right? So I just want to know, are you sick? Can I get you something? Are you just, and if it's just quiet, then great. The second thing for me is, if you're going to be quiet, and this is where, Chip, I appreciate this, don't go to lunch with me then and sit there and be quiet, because I'm going to look like an idiot. And what am I here for? Then I'd rather just stay at home. That's what drives me nuts, right? Like, if you're in a quiet mood, then be in a quiet place. Don't go to something where an expectation of behavior is different and then expect everyone to adjust to your behavior in that moment. Grow a pair, realize you might have to talk when you don't want to talk, or stay home. Just be like, hey, I'm out.
Have you given permission?
Yeah, like, that's the thing. Like, so I appreciate that, Chip, from your standpoint of, if it is an internal moment, great, just be internal and be like, I'm not going to be any fun. I'm just not in that mood and I'm going to stay home. That's maturity. It's not being silly. It's actually,
I agree.
You're given permission to do that, because then the rest of the time, people like me who actually care, like, we're trying to fix it the whole time. And guess what you are then? You're the sucker of fun. Nothing's fun because now I'm all worried about you and I'm not on whatever I need to be on. So I don't know. That's just my 2 cents. And someone might be, well, Sarah, don't worry about it. Okay, well, I'm not that person that I'm not going to care.
Yeah, I get that, definitely.
Sets, right? So
sure.
Yeah, I don't know. That's just my own thing on that. But again, I think all of these lists, it's all about communication, right? If you're in a bad mood, it's okay to be in a bad mood. Just acknowledge it so that people don't take it personally.
Exactly.
Right? Because half of these traits aren't about you. They're about the person who's experiencing them. But we all in our world take it. And then that's where all those things go wrong. So anyway, well, we are going to charge you for this session because obviously we've had a lot of breakthrough. And,
I want a couch next time to lay on.
Right, exactly.
And Chip, 14 minutes late for gaslighting. So
exactly. So we hope that you have a great weekend. And again, spend some time and thought into maybe how you have toxic traits or people around you and what we can do, not to get rid of those people, but to actually improve on ourselves and others and work through our personality traits, because we all have them. So we hope you have a great weekend, and we will see you on Tuesday, same place, same time.
See ya.